feeling good, can I tell?
9:30. You know.
You better have a lot of questions because you be the only one asking.
Well, we ain't gonna do too much question and answer.
Huh? The question and answer is the best part.
Okay. Well, thank you, my name is Ray. Brother Ray. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. We meet here in honor of William Mackey Jr., Amos Wilson, Alhaji Miguel Chavez, Malcolm X, Minister Khaled, Louis Rivera, Brother Assad, Dr. Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, Professor George Simmons, Miss Viola Maddox, all the great historians that gave up fame and fortune, burned the midnight oil. You can think of them yourself. Miss Viola Maddox, who drove an old car from Jersey all the way to the United African Movement, ate her lunch in there. And she wanted to bring people together. She believed in bringing people together for the lecture. So we want to honor these people. It's a variety of them. So we keep these lectures going to keep information to the global community. For the people that came out, give yourself a great big hand. It's raining in New York. Raji, zoom it over to the Amos collection. In honor of Amos Wilson and Brother Sababu, African World Info Systems. We have Blueprint for Black Power. Amos Classic, Black on Black Violence. The Psychodynamic of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. And you hear a lot about crime all over the country. You hear about black on black crime, but you never hear about white on white crime. And it's happening every day. It says the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. The psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. Title speaks for itself. Big city mayors, junket politicians. Why are we doing it to each other? The psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind. And for some of us, we need a reclamation of the African mind. We have to do a reprogram. Awakening the natural genius of black children. Issues of manhood in black and white. The falsification of African consciousness. The psychodynamics. The developmental psychology of the black child. African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order. And we have S.K. Damian, Distorted Truth and the Bastardization of African Cosmology. Those publications are to help Brother Sababu continue the most important work for Amos. And he's struggling hard to keep this information going. So I got some books. You can get them on Amazon, and you read them, and you see all of us running around with weed and weed, either waiting in front of the liquor store, or now we waiting in front of the weed shop. And Dope Incorporated, and right? And it's legal. Big city mayors supporting marijuana shops, the governor. They talk about the drug dealer on the street and they getting tax revenue from weed. And the people are smoking it like it's 90 going north. And in the old days, you would smoke a joint and all you start doing is laughing and looking for a big giant hero sandwich. I don't see none of these people laughing and looking for nothing to eat. And right on page 48 is a picture of George Soros. Get this book and you'll be unbelievable about the British. In honor of Big Harold, who left us too soon at the Mackey's Group and UAM, the transfer agreement. Louis Ray Rivera and Brother Truss, Jews, God, and History. Excellent publication. The great Dr. Ben, Black Man of the Nile and his family. This is an unbelievable book, and Dr. Ben didn't have too many computers at this time. In honor of Dr. Ben. This book is when City College and the Jewish poor. When you get into, thank God for Professor Mackey in the old lecture, it's a whole new thing with this City College. Dr. Randy Short, Slavery Mastery, the impact of religious slavery revealed, in honor of Dr. Randy Short. I was listening to an old Mackey's tape, and he mentioned this book, A Hole in the Sheet, a modern woman's look at Orthodox and Hasidic Judaism. Evelyn Kane. Jazz in Jail. Our good brother, Louis Ray Rivera. Professor Mackey left us too soon. And Louis Ray would come down here, and I really miss him, man. He'd come out of the Marcy Project, man, and he knew my family and used to talk to me. And Louis Ray would come down here, and he would speak for hours and hours. And he lived not too far on Jefferson Avenue. And he would leave here, and we would walk him home, and he'd speak for another hour and a half. I really miss Louis Ray, and he actually, after Professor Mackey left us, he actually had the members, me, Brother Hassar, and other members to come on WBAI and talk about the Mackey's Group. So we want to honor Louis Ray. Everybody's talking about reparations. That's the new cliche out for black folks to think that this country that's falling as we speak going to give us some reparations, and they can't take care of their own. White folks are smoking crystal meth and crack and everything, but they don't talk about it. They actually think the country is falling, and they already giving other people all this money, the migrants, all this 53 million every time you turn around, and they still talk about reparations. But if you get this book without sanctuary, it shows the hangings. Brother Rajiv, zoom in. It shows the hangings. The postcards that they had, where they was having a picnic. And you gotta watch the word picnic, because it's a picnic. It was killing niggas. Hanging from trees in all the states. Youngsters, young blacks. Wrightsville, Georgia. 3 brothers in an abandoned house. And these goddamn people are still talking about a study, while they're handing out money to everybody now. So that's the new cliche, that they want to get black people to start voting Democrat, thinking you're going to get something. You ain't getting nothing. Well, I wound up picking this book up, and it basically states, Raji, this is going to be on my next, it's called The Shadow Party. How George Soros, Hillary Clinton, and the 60s radicals seized control of the Democratic Party. David Horowitz and Richard Poe. And I read a few things on this, and it'll blow your mind. And when you mention George Soros and the people that's running all these democratic political puppets, they black, they white, all of them. They going after Donald Trump and they can't stop the people from stealing old people houses in Brooklyn, but they're going after a man and they ain't even gonna get him. There's somebody behind him, George Soros. In honor of Ayo Kamati, Jews are the problem. World War III, COVID, Brother Ayo Kamati has did an excellent job. And this book is from Money Tree Publications. You get in touch with me, I have a few copies. Edward Dow, Causes Unknown, the epidemic of sudden death syndrome in 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, and probably be going up into 26. About all the people that's collapsing. Cardiac arrest, heart attacks. And he was an analyst with BlackRock. This guy did an excellent job on the figures, on the insurance companies and everyone to find out how was healthy people all of a sudden dropping dead, especially youngsters. In honor of Dr. Scott Whitaker, medicine, the cause of solution of the disease of malnutrition and the medical sense that are killing society. Dr. Scott Whitaker did an excellent job on this, out of Georgia. Cynthia McKinney, the only one personally who I feel cared about the people of the state of Georgia when China sneezes from the corona political lockdowns. Sister Cynthia. Pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals made a lot of money off of ventilators. This book is Capitalism on a Ventilator. Presidential candidate, Robert Kennedy, who they ain't even mentioning his name. And if anybody knows this country called the United States, it's Robert Kennedy Jr., because the Kennedy family is a part of it. Dr. McCullough, The Truth About COVID, and the real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the Global War of Democracy. And he also came out with 2 more books. The Wuhan Cover-Up and the Terrifying Bioweapons Arms Race, and Vax and Unvax. Let the science speak. And this is a doctor. His name is Brian Hooker. And if you have been coming to the lectures and listening to our keynote speaker tonight, Dr. Lewis, which they banned his videos, this book is based on over 100 studies in the peer-reviewed literature that considered vaccination versus unvaccination population. Each study is analyzed and held differences among infants, children, adults who have been vaccinated and those who have not are presented and put in context. Reader will find information on the infant child vaccination schedule, that's for schools. Thermoglosal in vaccines, live virus vaccines, the human papillomavirus, HPV, vaccination in Gulf War illness, influenza, hepatitis B, the COVID-19 vaccine, and vaccines during pregnancy, giving the masses push to vaccinate the entire global population. This book is timely and necessary for individuals to make informed choices. So we're basically talking about vaccinations of all kinds. So don't open up your mouth talking about just the COVID vaccine. You got vaccines now when you take your child is born. Soon as God brings the child into earth, they pump the child with all these vaccines in the hospitals. And then you wonder why the autism rate is coming up. So that's a good book. And they say you can't, and it's just like with COVID-19. You can't go to school unless you take it. Or like they said, you can't go to work unless you take it. These are events that's coming up for you to check out. Thorough Black Talk with Tad, Keisha, Brother Black, Ashe, and Sister Marcia. That comes on 8 o'clock, Facebook Live. Keisha and Tad, Brother Black and Ashe, and Sister Marcia has a good show coming on every Thursday. Our Baltimore Connection with Sister Empress Chi. Blog Talk Radio. That comes on Saturdays at 10:30. The telephone number is 319-527-6189. And you can tune in on our Philadelphia Connection with Sister Empress. And the program is starting to be put on Zoom, where you can see the people and meet them and talk to them. I mean, thank you, Sister Filet, for doing that. Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. Every Monday at 10 o'clock, Ayo Kamati and Brother Anthony Muhammad. Kamati Live, that comes on 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and it's been hot. Mondays, 10 o'clock a.m., Sankofa Revolutionary Radio out of Birmingham, Alabama. Our Baltimore Connection, State of the City, Brother Darren Muhammad, comes on sometime Wednesday, sometime Thursday, but every Saturday on TuneIn Radio, and he comes on Facebook Live, and he also comes on Instagram under State of the City, Baltimore. Darren is bringing it down in the state of Baltimore, and he talks about a lot of stuff that's going on. Every Monday at 7 p.m., Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Project, that comes on at 7 o'clock every Monday. And it's the same ID and passcode, 874-6384-6363, and the password is 348528. Dr. Aline is laying it down, an excellent program. Sometimes it'd be over 100 people on that program. Dr. James McIntosh and the Simotap organization, his program Minefield, comes on 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock every Wednesday on WBAI. And they had an excellent program this week with Sister Tyree, forgot her name, but it was an excellent program. I wasn't able to make it, but I heard it was good. If you want to see any of the, Brother Trust Graham, African Echoes, has a Friday group. And that study group comes on every Friday at 8 o'clock, and Brother Trust Graham is the mediator of that group. And somebody will be on, and they'll put the information in the text, and then Saturday they give you a double header. Brother True and the Know Thyself study group out of Asbury Park, they have a study group come on Saturday at 1:30, so you get a 1-2 punch. You get a Friday study group with Trust Graham, and then you get a Saturday study group with Trust Graham. They're doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward the reclamation of the African mind, and Chancellor Williams. So that's information to the global community for you to study and get information. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our speaker tonight said he had to come back. He has a docu-series on YouTube under B.K. William Mackey Jr. History in Africa. He's coming back, and ladies and gentlemen, he's going to tell you it's radicalism, and in the, what was the name of that? Hold up, guys. Pan-Africanism in the Sahel region of North Africa. So there's a lot of things going on in Africa that they don't want you to know about. He has a 6-part documentary series on YouTube under B.K. William Mackey Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we're going to give you Dr. Arthur Lewis, the keynote speaker. Thank you very much, Doc.
Okay, good evening, African audience, globally. Today we are speaking as we do weekly, as Professor Mackey lecture series, put on and maintained by dedicated African people in the community. Brother Ray is the coordinator. He does an excellent job. He keeps everything tight, and he keeps it so that we are able to make this presentation. So we have to give him credit and his support mechanism. Then we have to give credit to the audience, Brother Graves, and the other individuals who come every other week, because we have to have space to do the lecture. We have to have the individuals to come to the lecture, not only to hear and to learn, but they also have to interact, especially in the question and answer. So that gives the lecture an opportunity to have additional information from those who are now here. So we all are part of this presentation, this drama and this play, and we all play a very important role in it. So I just want to thank everybody who participates to give me an opportunity to speak to you. In this presentation is a series that we've been doing on the African continent. We were specifically targeting a part of Africa that they call the Sahel. Why? Because there are certain things that have been occurring in the last 2 or 3 years in that part of Africa called the Sahel that gives us an illustration of what the Africans are doing in terms of bringing Africa back to where it was. Now, I'm going to ask someone to look and target the continent on this large map. I want to just illustrate to the audience the area that we are dealing with and have been dealing with in Africa, so that you'll know what we're talking about. In the diagram here of Africa, it's divided into sections. The Africans have divided into sections. It's called, they call West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, Central Africa, and Southern Africa. They're in those 5 blocks. The series that we have been concentrating on is dealing with this strip. So let's say you take the height and you divide it into 5 equal parts. The Sahel basically deals with those sets of countries from west to east, not north to south, we're talking west to east, in this arch right here. So when you look at it geographically and you cut it, you take a slice, you put it in 5, we're dealing with this set of countries that arches across from west to east. Now, we have to remember Africa is 4 times the size of the United States of America. So when you're talking about stretching from the western part, the Sahel, therefore, means near the desert. We're talking about this upper slice running across from west to east. The distance from west to east is almost 4,000 miles. So we're talking about large areas. And why have we decided to concentrate on these nations in what we call the Sahel near the desert, which would include Sudan, Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. This strip. Because when we talk about Africa, we are more familiar with what comes on TV other studies, people know about South Africa, then they know Nigeria, then of course they know Ghana. So those things are familiar. But like any and everything that we do, we have to learn about the area we're talking about. Each of us, we have jobs, we have businesses, we've been living among communities, and whatever we had to do, we had to learn specifically about that field that we are talking about. So as long as we're talking about Africa generally, but we're talking about this portion right here, which is about almost 5,000 miles across. These are large land areas. If you were to compare it to the United States, you could fit the United States. One part of the United States would fit here, second part of the United States would fit here, and you split it. So it's 4 times the size. So we're dealing with the Sahel, Sudan, Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. This area. And why we chose this area is because there are 3 countries in the central part of Sahel: Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. This is 2024. In 2020, 2022, 2023, there were what they call a coup. It just means to cut off the head. You had individual leaders in each of these 3 countries, which was supposed to be the elected leaders. And there was what they call a coup, but it's a popular consent of the people where the head of state was physically removed by the military. But the masses of people in each of these 3 countries agreed with that assessment. So we're going to talk about these 3 countries. So in the presentation, to give you context, you say what we're talking about: 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. In the last 3 or 4 years in this area, that's what we talk about. This strip of Africa, 3 years ago up until now, and we're concentrating on that. And what is similar to each of them is that the so-called elected leader of these 3 countries were removed by the military for any number of reasons. So, what we're going to try to do is to continue the discussion of these 3 countries. But what we want to do is to put these 3 countries in a context. Talking about that area, I remember my young grandson, he's 13 now, he was about 6 or 7. He asked me, was Malcolm X a slave? So I explained to him the context. The reason that I indicate, I says, first of all, Malcolm X is an African man living in the area you call United States. And he lived in a certain period of time. They call it the 20th century, between 1900 and 2000. So what I'm telling is you have to always try to indicate the location of what you're trying to find out and the time period. So you're talking about Malcolm X is dealing with his life and his activities primarily in what you call the United States of America. We're not talking about him being in Australia. So you got to say the location and the time. Okay. Same thing here. Even though we're going to talk about the Sahel, we want to put it in context with what is happening in other parts of the world and how it affects these 3 areas. Okay. In this presentation, you have in front of you 11 pieces of information. 11. So to me, the way I attempt to pass the information on is in a lecture form, just talking to you, to give the information. And I do it in a written form so that you'll be able to have the information so we can have a discussion, question and answers and comments. And also, you have something to start doing some research on further. Just like any one of you presenting in the area you want to present, you will have to give us the area, educate us about that area, so that when we were to ask you questions and answers, we have to know what we're dealing with. So the 11 pages is centered around these three countries, but in context with what is happening in the United States. And the reason that I centered on the United States is because we Africans are in the United States of America. And in all of the talks that I attempt to do, I always want to keep reminding us where we are. I forgot the doctor's name, wasn't Creswell, so the one who, what do they call it? The sister that deals with stress, post-traumatic
Stress syndrome.
George Leary, Dr. Leary. So the reason that I want to mention to her, and as I talk to my children, my grandchildren, I'm not suffering from that post-traumatic stress. I'm suffering from the stress that is now. So I just want to clarify from my point of view, is that stress, this post-traumatic stress, is not, that I feel, is not specifically connected to what was done to us in the United States in slavery. My post-traumatic, it's still present traumatic stress because we're living in a place that is not our culture. That stress is what we all know. Poison, air, water, and food, being locked down, working, paying taxes, being mistreated. And so I try to say, we're not going to talk just about the stress that I'm under right now. We want to look back on the history of the country that I'm in, that I'm still under stress. So I want to make it real. So page 1, and in this process, I attempt to give you a picture, historical picture of the United States of America. So you don't forget where you are and why you having problems. So page 1 is Smedley Butler's intervention. I always like to start with Smedley Butler because when you read it, it only takes 2 minutes, and it's one of the best presentations that I know of a white male who was an American, who was in the military, sums it up perfectly to giving you the history of the United States from a certain period of time and how the system works. Page 2, which we're going to read, is War, which is Smedley Butler again. This is taken from his 6-page small book he did on war as a racket. And then the third of the 11 pages, we're going to read the continuation of Smedley Butler. Each of these reading takes about 2 minutes, so you get a picture of where we're going to be. The fourth is Study U.S. Congress Literally Doesn't Care About What You Think. We have read it before, but it's a reminder so you know where you are. And it deals with how Congress works. And I'll give you a quick example before we read it because I want them to hear it. Is they want to, the people who are running the United States wants to take $60 billion of your tax money and send it to Ukraine. Ukraine already lost the war. And some of the individuals in the government, this lady called Newland, she said, the $60 billion to go to Ukraine is never going to get to Ukraine. This is the Undersecretary of State of the United States who they just made resign yesterday. Newland, I'm telling you what she said. She's a white woman in the system. I'm not white, I'm not a woman, I'm not in the system. So I just want to let you know, I didn't make it up. This is what statement she said as they put her on television to try to convince the American people to give another $60 billion. She said it's only going to go to the military-industrial complex. It's never going to leave here. It's going to go to the Pentagon. And it's going to go to those Congress people who vote the money, they get their cut. So understand where you are. This is, we've used this before, and I'm going to, the next presentation, give you a little more documentation. This is the Declaration of Independence. People got to understand who started this place. So when we read this, and we read Spendy Butler, hopefully you will come to understand who runs the United States of America. About 1,500 corporations, all white Anglo-Saxon male, no Jews and stuff, they're white Anglo-Saxon males. The descendants of these people. So you got to remember your history. And now again, I'll read the little history of the United States. Then I wanted to put this in here. This is a statue of President Theodore Roosevelt. And there's an African, when you come to the Museum of Natural History, they took it away. Because when George Floyd that incident was happening, they start tearing down all of the statues and everything. So that people now are not supposed to know. See, this tells you who's running the place. A white man, Theodore Roosevelt, has on his right an indigenous person. And on his left is the African. So he's telling you, we run this country and we practice racial discrimination, genocide, and slavery. Forget it if you want. The next page, number 5, is a list of the military bases in Africa. We'll discuss it quickly. The next page, because a lot of these, after the first 3 pages, you will read them, we will discuss them, they go quick. This is giving you the list of the military, the list of the bio labs in Africa that they tell you about, and the list of the military bases in Africa. And why that's important, so you'll understand, and you're going to see what these 3 countries realize. The first thing you have to do is you cannot let any foreign troops in your country. These countries were former French colonies. They had 1,500 French troops in each of the countries. And each of these countries before the coup had almost no military. How many foreign countries have military bases in the U.S.? It's unheard of. No. So you're going to realize why you get rid of all of your, and they're your enemy. They all, the Berlin Conference, the Europeans cut off Africa. The United States was there. The United States took Liberia, and they took a little piece of the Congo, and they were sitting there. Okay, so we'll discuss that, and then next to this is about number 9, I believe, you will see the opium wars that the United States participated. It's there, so that you can then walk away and say, okay, I'm more interested in doing. I'm here to tell you, or go over the history of the United States. 10th page will be dealing with Burkina Faso to show you one aspect of how you clean your house of the rats and the roaches is you get the military out. And then the other thing is you diversify who you work with. Because in the Berlin in 1944, when they had Bretton Woods Conference, when the United States was taken over from Bretton Woods Conference, a conference held in the United States by United States and England, and there were 42 countries there, and the United States and Britain were dictating the New World Order. Who's going to run who's going to control, who's going to run the world militarily, economically, and politically.
That was in 1944.
1944.
42 countries.
Yeah, 42 countries. When you look it up, there are 42. And of the 42, only 4 were from Africa, but we'll go into that. So, you have to get them out of your country, because these are the people who committed genocide to you in Africa. And the last page is just one of the pages from my pamphlet on health. Three keys to a healthy life. So I threw that in to remind you very quickly. You can't do anything if you're dead. You can't do anything if you're sick. So I always tell my children and others, 4 things that I've learned from my experience is: 1, you want to be alive. I always ask the question, try waking up dead. 2nd, you want to be healthy, can function. What you got to do is go to the nursing home and the hospitals and stuff. You'll see what I mean. You first got to wake up alive. 2nd, you got to be healthy. You got to make sure you're in good health. 3rd, you have to decide what are you going to do with that time for that day that you have. And then I always include number 4, maintain your reputation at all costs. Ask some of your white friends, the French, and the English, and the Germans, and the Americans. After the United States and the Europeans cut off the gas and oil that they got from Russia, trying to collapse Russia, it didn't work. So they ran to the Africans. You have plenty of oil, and every African leader went in and pulled up the record. Remember the Berlin Conference? You have no standing here. So you don't want to get that. That's how important your reputation. None of these African countries want to deal with white people. Oh yeah, the Chinese say you're the enemy. I don't want to hear that. We know the Arabs went in at 7-11. We want to know what happened in the last 500 years. That's what you mean by reputation. If your reputation ain't good, nobody want a damn thing. And that's why the BRICS. So I'm going back and forth to illustrate, then we're going to read this. It takes about 20 minutes. That's why the BRICS are an acronym for 5 countries, right? Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa. That's the BRICS. We'll go through that in detail. So people, what the BRICS? It's these 5 countries in the Union. The Union is 3 things: military, economic, and political. That's what they are restructuring. Because after 1944, the Europeans were running the world. From 1944, so let's say 2000, they had Africa as a colony, they had most of Asia as a colony, they had most of Central South America, they had most of it, and what they were doing was exterminating people. Period. What are you talking about? They have something called a 5 Eyes. There are 5 countries. Britain, UK, the English, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Those are the 5 Eyes, the cousins that work together. And what do they all have in common? That they're living on land that they exterminated the indigenous population again. Britain did it, knock off the Irish and the Scots and the Wales. The United States kill off tens of millions of indigenous people here. They killed off millions in Canada. The white people killed down the population in Australia and in New Zealand. Those are the 5 Eyes. They work together, they're cousins. So when you talk about genocide in the last 200 years, they're the master of it. And now that the world is changing and that Russia is the strongest military army, China is the biggest economy, And the BRICS, they're restructuring the global GDP. So right now, those 5 countries, I'm saying it now before I forget, Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa, their control of the world trade, according to the different assessments, is about 35%. They have displaced the white folks. The G7, which is United States and Canada, United States and Canada, the UK, Germany, Italy, France, and Japan. Those are the ones who are dominating the globe from at least 1944 up to 20, whatever you want to say, no longer. So those 5 countries have already wrestled, and that's what the whole colonialism was about the last 200 years. White people to run around killing down people so they can steal the land and food. And I always talk with my son, I said, well, no, let's say it this way. I worked for a young man. He's 30-something. He had an optical. He came from Trinidad. Trinidad. And he's telling me about his Indian part of him. And his Indian this and the Indian that. So I said to him, he asked me, he said, these millionaires, you know these millionaires, they're the most important people in the society. Bill Gates and the men, he keeps telling me that. He said, what do you think? I say, why do all these white millionaires wait to become millionaires and billionaires? They wait till they get to the U.S. How come they weren't millionaires, billionaires someplace else? Because you come and get rich, tapped in from the United States, you got all this free land and resources, you eat the indigenous people's fish and stuff, then you bring a second element, the African who built the countries. One of the men tell me, oh, the immigrants didn't build a damn thing here. The United States of America foundation is on the resources that are here from the indigenous people, and the African people built everything. So I said, why did they wait? Why did they wait? To get here to be rich, or for your back and the indigenous people's back. Did you ask Donald Trump's grandfather, who the documents say that they were picking, what you call sharecroppers? His family come out of chick-picking farm products, and they made his way from, there was no Germany, it wasn't put together, Germany went through there, and then you take the boat and the stuff to England, and then you take the boat over. The story goes that Trump's grandfather came here when he was 16 or 17, lived with his sister downtown, and then left to the West Coast. Now I'm telling you this story from what I read in the documents they put out for the average people to read. I'm not making it up. I didn't do the research. And when he left New York, he was a barber, he went out west and made his fortune on the West Coast from prostitution, the hotels, and what you call this, drugs. So I said, no, the most important person in any society, you had one. I said, what are you talking about? You had one, he couldn't get it. I said, you had a mother that died. So I used the word had because she physically died, but she's still there. Your mother, women making babies are the most important to any society. One brother say, but what about the man? Of course you need the man for the sperm. But let every woman on earth right now have all of the sex you want, but no babies. What's going to happen to the human race? It's not going to be here in 100 years. Who's important? That's why the Africans, there's at least a third of the world is African people spread all over. So I said to them, then I said, as far as you're Indian, you're so about, you know, about the Indian part of you. I said, how did the Indians get here? We, you know, from India and Pakistan. How did they get there? The Europeans took them. They took them here and brought them there. And then he told me, they're indentured servants. Indentured servants is when you make it. I said, you actually telling me that you telling me those Europeans, those British who control that part of the world you call India and Pakistan, they were bringing you here to replace the Africans because there were too much revolt, and they actually signed contracts? So he says, how do you know? I said, I just asked the question. I said, go back to the studies that are happening now. This is like 2 years ago. The British white scholars are arguing with the Indians in India, scholars, over how many people the English killed. The white scholars said 35 million. They admit to killing 35 million people that 100 years. It was so bad the crown had to take it from the East Indian Company. The indigenous people, the Indians said no, it was at least 75 million. Mass murder all over the place. Then they tell you on TV why these Africans don't want to have any dealings with white folks. Okay, so let us read this. Let us put in our 20 minutes, getting the material out to you, and then we have the question and answer, which is the most important. So I just give you an overview. Now, in the Smedley Butler, I'm going to skip. You can read this in 2 minutes. I've done it. We've done it. But I'm going to skip a middle part. So let me read it for the order. Smedley Butler, you look him up, was a white American born. He had to reach the highest rank in the military of the, what do they call these? Marines. Marines, yeah. Sometimes you got too many things going here. He's saying, so he's giving you an illustration about these white people running the United States. So that you understand, he's telling you who you're dealing with. War is a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it's about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the masses. And when we get to, in another 5 or 6 minutes, we get to this portion of the reading where they did a survey on 95% of everything legislatively passed in the United States is passed in the benefit of a handful of rich corporations.
Rich white men.
Okay? So he said it, they did the survey said it. So when people say, well, you know, your bootstraps, okay. We're going to go to the second. We're going to skip this one. I wouldn't go with the second, the third paragraph down. I wouldn't go to war again if I had done to protect myself. Okay, let's drop to the fourth. We don't want to. There isn't a trick in the racketeering bag that the military gang is blind to. It has its fingermen, that's the news people tell you who's the bad guy, who points to the enemy, and you have the muscle men to destroy the enemy. The brain man to plan war preparation, and the big boss super nationalist capitalist. Same thing that the Secretary of State Newland, who just resigned, said. You got to give the money. It isn't going to go to Ukraine. It's going to stay right here. Your tax dollar is going right to the military, the Pentagon, and the Congress. They're splitting it. She told you, Smedley Butler's telling you, and the report is telling you. Then we're going to drop down to here. So he's telling you what to give you the history. I helped make Mexico, we're talking 1900, 1905, 1910. And this is when the United States was ravishing the Caribbean. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for the American oil interest in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys. So now he's telling you the corporation. To collect the revenue. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street banking house Brown Brothers in 1909 to 12. I brought to the Dominican Republic for American Sugar Company. The bottom. During these years, I had, as the boys in the back room would say, a swell racket. Looking back on it, I feel that I could have given Al Capone a few hints. He did his work in 3 areas, I did mine on 3 continents. Why this? To show you why you have these billionaires and why you have 350 billion people. And as the economist says, 1%, maybe 5% of the people in the United States are doing well at the benefit of the other 95%. Wars are active. Second page. We're going to go here. You see this second page? The wars are active. In the World War, now he's talking about World War I and World War II. In the World War, a mere handful garnered the profits of the conflict. The United States sent $200 billion to Ukraine. 95% of it stayed right here. Big corporations, Pentagon, and Congress. They split the money. A mere handful garnished the profits of the conflict. At least 21,000 new millionaires and billionaires were made in the United States during the World War. Have that many admitted their huge blood gain on their income tax? How many of the war millionaires shouldered a rifle? How many of them dug a ditch? How many of them knew what it meant to go hungry in a rat-infested dugout? Well, that's a condition. They got a lot of people in the United States. Massive homelessness due to 2 reasons. The corporations outsource the jobs. 30, 40, 50 million. Devastated mainly the white middle class because they had all the good jobs. Outsource the jobs, and then they outsource and deindustrialize. That's why Russia kept its industry intact, and they can make all the bombs and everything. The United States can't make anything. They can't keep up because you sold your industry, you deindustrialized, and you sold the jobs. Because those of us corporations stand behind, we're going to stay rich by ripping the American people with this scheme or that scheme or the other one. The debt trap. These countries said, no more of that. So all what we're talking about here, your countries there in Africa and others are reversing the trend. And then he goes on to give you more detail, but you get the picture. Let's go to the second war is Iraq, page 3. And he says here, of course, for the loss, there will be a compensating profit. Fortunes would be made. Millions and billions of dollars will be piled up by a few munition makers, bankers, shipbuilders, manufacturers, meat packers. So that's one of the reasons why some say you have Eisenhower's military-industrial complex, and then others add on the university, miseducating, and then they add on the news media. They all in the clique take the money, stick it in their pocket, and the hell with the American people. Study. A U.S. Congress literally doesn't care what you think. Professor Martin Gillen, Princeton University, and Benjamin Page, Northwest, looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer the simple question, does the covenant respect the people? The study took data from 2,000 public opinion surveys and compared it to the policies that ended up becoming law. In other words, they compared what the public wanted to what the government actually did. Princeton University, etc., etc. Princeton University study, public opinion near zero impact on the United States. They don't give a damn what you go to the poll and vote. And to sum it up, rather than reading it, which you can read, what he's telling you is, you work, you pay the tax. Your tax money goes into the corporate, and the Congress people make the, city, state, and federal, they make the law on what's going to be spent in. And basically what he's telling you is, and he says it here, that the big corporations, city, state, and federal government, gets about $5 billion a year in bribes. Oh, campaign contributions. All your local, state, and federal. And they give back to the big corporations trillions. That's what they're doing basically here. Let's go to this next page. Declaration of Independence. I wrote it out here, but didn't have time to write it in for you to remember. I'll chart it the next time. What was the Declaration of Independence? What was the Constitutional Convention? So you look at this and these men are standing there doing what? They already had a convention, and they come up with a group of ideas and stuff, and they say, we're going to build us a club called the United States. So I'm just reading you, this is the Declaration of Independence. The United States Constitutional Convention, May 25, 1787 to 9/17/1787. That 1 year, hundreds of white men, Anglo-Saxon Protestants, slave owners, who ran the society completely, raping and killing people, they're the ones who had a constitutional convention. Where was it? Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So let's get this straight. It is the meeting of all of the white Anglo-Saxon male in the 13 colonies getting together. And no women here. Nobody else. If you're not white, if you're not landowner, and you have the wealth, you're not here. And what did they do? They met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The Articles of Confederation, and the issues they say was the representation. How are we landowners going to make a group? How are we going to make an organization including all of our interests of the 13 colonies? We're not talking about the indigenous. We're not talking about the interests of the slave, African who was enslaved. And we're not talking about 98% of the white people they brought over here as slaves. Their issue was the representation among us, the relation between state and the federal government, executive power, how much we're going to give the new president, commerce, and slavery. If you don't talk about slavery, you don't have an economy. So that you know, over here, the United States Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. Declaration of the 13 United States of America. We're pulling together here. Signed 8/2/1776. Pennsylvania State House, Philadelphia. And this is what they wrote. Equality. Now they're only talking about themselves. They're only talking about their clubs, okay? White Anglo-Saxon.
Rich white
Protestant.
people own property.
Yeah. The wealth comes from the indigenous people's land and the African people making the thing work. No foreign, no immigrant built this country. By the time the majority of Europeans started flooding out of Europe in 1850, hundreds of millions, Spanish went to their colonies and they came here. What were they running from? War, famine. By the time these Europeans will come in as immigrants, 1850, the country's already been built. You built all the roads, all the wharves, all the port. You grew the agricultural products that made the world. The United States began to become an international global power through cotton. You planted it, you picked it, you took it to the wharf, you made it. You made the damn country. And no immigrants made a damn thing. And the 5 things they said: equality. They also mentioned for our prosperity. You know who they're talking about. You have natural rights. You govern by the consent of the governed. And you have a right to alter and abolish the government. We as American people have a right to get rid of this. They say it. If it don't serve you, this government doesn't serve 98% of the people. If they understood that it didn't serve you, you might exercise the clause to replace it. Then we go to Theodore Roosevelt. This is a statue I presented to you. You can go. I have some other original, but I took this off of the internet to show you. He's on a horse. The Africans here and here. Museum of Natural History, which is the main history museum that the United States presents to the world, and you can see some people in the background. They took it down. They don't want you to see this country is a Nazi country. The same thing that Israel is killing off, doing genocide. That's what he's telling you. This is the order of the day. Now we're going to the continent. So now we get a nice little review of the good people. The foreign policy of the United States and the domestic are the same. You make up all the rules and regulations. You enslave both population and a handful of corporations, 50, take all the wealth and become billionaires. And the hell with you. This is a list of the U.S. bases. The last list that at least they show you. And this list here is summarized by these 2 maps. So when you take this second map out, take the map page out in your folder, and I'm going to read it off so you will see. This is recent. The United States has military bases. Okay. Ascension Island. You know where Ascension Island is? Way down in the Pacific.
Move the chair.
Is that considered Africa?
No, it's this part of the
Pacific Ocean?
volcanic island. The British and then the United States. Ascension Island. One base. You see the name. Burkina Faso. Chad, Burkina Faso. Right here. United States had a base here. Cameroon. You see where Cameroon is? Yeah.
Chad.
This is the bases that they're admitting that they have, military bases. Djibouti, way over here. Camp Lanier and Chamberlain. Gabon, Ghana, Kenya. Ghana's one base, Kenya has three, Mombasa, Manda Bay, and Waji. Libya, after the United States destroyed the country, really have a second base. I didn't have it. Mali. Yes, Mali, Nigeria, Chad, Mali here, this big Mali here.
Niger.
Bamako. Niger, you see it's almost centered. Niger has 6 bases. Who gave them these bases? When the French came. They worked together, the white folks worked together. Somalia, on this coast.
Senegal.
Senegal, Tunisia, and Uganda. So these are the names, but when you look at your map, you will see these black dots represent where they got Somalia. We gotta have to see what they're doing here. Africa is the center of activity, of natural resources, and it's the raw mineral hub that sustains the damn world. And the second major raw minerals that sustain is Russia. Okay? So they got one, they got Tunisian here. And look at this, the Sahel. This is the Sahel. They put all these bases in the Sahel. Right here. Now, when we do the next lecture, you will see that what the 3 countries did, and we go to the next page, they got rid of the French. Now they got to get the United States bases out. Now, why is it that United States want bases? What do you do with the base?
Control.
You spy,
Control.
intelligence, you store what you want, you house where you want, you project power, and when we go through it in more detail later, see, if you look here, United States and Europeans destroyed Libya, right? That was in 2011. In 2012, there were jihadist groups all of a sudden appear. Armed, jeeps, machine guns. And these jihadist troops came out of Libya. So after the United States destroyed Libya, they took Libyan weapons and they added weapons. And they developed the jihad groups to attack Mali, Niger, Chad, and Nigeria. That's what the United States put them there. Armed them. So these countries have been fighting against the jihadists since 2012, 1 year after the United States destroyed Libya. From 2012 up until a year ago, these 3 Sahel countries we concentrate on: Mali, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria. These 3, the jihadists control at least 50 or 60% of these countries physically. That's what they're there for. Kill all the people, cause dissension, just like you put weapons into the black community. And so, the 3 countries said the French troops have been here for 10 years. The American military base has been here for 10 years. The UN military people have been here. And the European Union. They all got their troops in our country fighting the jihadists that the United States put there. And as a result of those 4 countries in these Sahel countries fighting, the rebels control 80% of the country. So what did these three countries do? Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso kick out the French troops. Close down some of the US bases. Kick out the UN. Kick out the EU. We are concentrated, we'll show you here. And they went and they begin, we'll answer that question now. The last towards we wind down. So you see the basis. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the UN troops, they smuggle the gold out. This is what the United States is doing. This is what France is doing. This is what the European Union, they put the troops in. They don't help you fight, but they don't build you up. And they kicking them out of Democratic Republic of Congo, and especially Mali, is kicking the UN troops out because they found out that they are smuggling out the gold, diamonds, and the minerals. That's what they're there for. In Burkina Faso, 1,500 troops, most of the countries out of jihad, 10 years they didn't do a damn thing. You get rid of them. Now, so here, before we go to the last page, the map, this gives you the military bases, right?
Yes.
Here, this map shows you the biolabs that the United States have here admitted. You remember, what's it, Fauci and fighting with the Chinese, who did it? You both did it. You did it, the United States did it, but Japan, China said, I'll take the money and run it into my lab. So these, the upper map, tell you the biolabs. Biological labs they're doing experiments with, this upper map. And where are they? In these countries here. You notice the concentration is in West Africa. The Africans. All of it is Africa. But this is that mass population of countries where the French and Americans still have been able to just steal. So you got these bases. So we look up here. Let's read about that. U.S. bases. When you look on the map, they got them all around the world. BSL. You see, right, the lowest here? The BSL says biohazard safety level 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, you know, it's like a lab in a hospital. 4 is when they're dealing with those Ebola and the rest of them that they can kill people by the thousands. So you have these biolabs in these countries, different levels, and Nigeria, Gabon, and South Africa, and Kenya have these really dangerous labs. So they let the United States run these biolabs, doing the same thing that your friend Fauci and the rest of them doing. That's what the United States is doing.
Did you say Kenya?
When you look on the map here, you notice I put an X. Every place there's an X, there's a biolab 1 level, the second level. And when you see 3 and 4, those are the biolabs like Fauci and them have that kill you by the thousands. That's what they're working on. So these are the biolabs that they're admitting to. Now you see why you got to get the United States, the European, no Chinese got biolabs here, no Japanese. Who's got biolabs there? United States. Who's stealing your natural sources and been stealing it for 200 years? United States and Europe. No reputation. So here are the military bases of the United States. I didn't put in the French because we're trying to deal with a better understanding of a country you're living in and the people who are running it. They're genocidalists. They're Nazis. The Nazis came here to the United States to learn how to do concentration camp. You got the indigenous people in concentration camp. You put them in these, what do they call them?
Ghettos.
Huh?
Ghettos.
No, indigenous.
Reservations.
Reservations, yes. Then you put the poor Irish, you put them up in Appalachia. And then you pass a law, there's a book we could buy, how the US government segregated America, the redlining. So they jammed us all into urban concentration camps called cities. Then they did it to the Japanese, right? You know, the 3 or 4 of those internment camps.
California.
So, pardon me?
California back in the day.
Yeah. So by the time their cousins in Germany want to know how to do it, who's better? Who's got the quintessential experience and mindset? The United States of America. Go back to the Boer War around 900, 1899 to 900, when the Boers are German people, went down to South Africa, started living good, and then the English came down, their cousins, and they stopped fighting. The Boer Wars, you look it up, 1899 to 1901, 1902. And the Boers was putting, whipping on their cousins, the British, so the British, US, Britain put in more troops, and they developed concentration camps. The British did a concentration camp for their cousins, the Boers, and a concentration camp for Africans. So you have already the English, who's cousin to the US. You got the English made concentration camps in South Africa. And they put the Boers in one set, and they put the African men, women, and children. Massive death. Concentration camp, 1900. Indigenous people, concentration camp, reservation. African people in the cities of the United States. The poor Irish here. Then the Japanese. But we don't talk about that. Only the Germans are the bad one. Professor Mackey had us get a book called The Crimes and Punishment of IG Farmers, a big conference. All of the death camps were connected with industrial parks. Germany went to war, they had a shortage of workers. He said, somebody's going to work the farm, somebody's going to clean the street, and somebody's going to work in these factories. So they just took up people and concentrated them. And most of the concentration camps were connected to the industrial parks. Rockefeller and them invested in that. And when they bombed Germany, they didn't bomb these farms. So in other words, basically what the Germans said, look, we need millions of people to keep the economy running because our men are out there fighting. We're going to work these people, and then we can't feed them. They didn't get no medical, so what do? When they used them up, burn them up. They just killed them. Get another set in. I didn't say, I'm not talking about the value, is what they did. They used you up. They're not doing any medicine and stuff. They did the experimentation on them just like they do to us. And then those who couldn't work anymore, they just dumped you off. Okay, so these are maps. Let's get down to the last three. We're going to talk about Burkina Faso at the last. This page is USA, the Opium Wars. This is what they tell you. These are opium wars that the United States participated in. First, The first Opium War was between the so-called King, Jing, Q-I-N-G, however I'm pronouncing it, government, the king and all of that. The British came in for any number of reasons, and from 1839 to 1842, the British, aided by the United States, bringing their warships, break into China, and then they brought the drugs in. The drugs that they were growing in what is now Afghanistan and Pakistan. They forced them. That's one of the most obvious, potent example of the narcotic wars. The United States participated in that. The second Opium War, same thing, the Chinese against the United States and UK, and what I left out was France. In the second Opium War, France got into it. Okay? So now they're pushing the opium on the Chinese people. Let's go internationally. The third Opium War was the Vietnamese War, the United States against Vietnam. The third Opium War. The fourth Opium War was Afghanistan. They went in 2021. So the United States said, you know, Afghanistan, India, it's all the same. So United States, when England was controlling China, they got big. So United States took over the global heroin trade when they went into Afghanistan for 20 years. And the Afghanistan production of poppy, when the United States took over, went up 10 times, 20 times. It's the fourth Opium War. And then the fifth Opium War, which is now being waged from 20 to now, is the open southern border crossing with with Mexico. Fentanyl. We're going to get these damn drugs in here. Why? Because when the United States left Afghanistan, the Afghanistan people asked other countries to help them to turn their poppy fields into agriculture. They said, let's grow some damn food. And then the poppy went whoop. And then some people speculate, why are they letting the fentanyl, why they keep the border open? Is it for cheap labor? Is it to destabilize the American society? And is it to get the fentanyl in? You gotta get it in. Then The Guardian in 2009, according to their studies, made an assessment that the drug money saved the banks in the global crisis. And the two basic banking systems they're talking about is the international banking system of the colonists, Europeans. And the two major countries talking about the United States and Britain. So that's the role of the drugs. Now, let's go to the next to the last page and we'll finish. This page here, Burkina Faso, to show you how they're dealing with it. During the Bretton Woods meeting, when the United States ran the Bretton Woods, the British Empire was going down, the United States was coming up. And after World War I, the United States was assisting their cousins, England. But they said to their cousins, you gotta pay us these bullets and these clothing, just like Smedley Butler said. You won't pay us. So the British had to pay their cousins, American cousins, gold for the assistance they gave them, right? World War II come around. World War II break out. That's why there's evidence that the United States pushed World War I and World War II. The second war break out. England needs help again. They come to the Americans, again, their cousin. Americans said, I'll ship you whatever you want. Cars, tanks, airplanes, whatever it is. The British said, we ain't got nothing to pay for it. And the cousin said, you go find out sooner or later. The Russians, they also shipped United States production, the only industrialized country we left. They also sent to Russia, or the Soviet Union at this point, same thing they sent to Britain. They sent them planes, and tanks, and bullets, and coal, and everything Spanky brother tell you about war. Money on the shoes, money on the clothes. So the American corporate structure was making hundreds of billions of dollars assisting Britain and assisting Russia. But they told Russia, you gotta pay us. So the Russians paid them in gold, diamonds, and minerals, because Russia is a vast area. The greatest concentration of natural resources is in Africa, and the second greatest is Russia. So the Russia paid America. They call it the Lend-Lease. The Lend-Lease is when I lease you these weapons, because it was a law that said you couldn't, America couldn't do it. So they could, when the United States shipped the war materials to England through what they call a Lend-Lease. They kept up, so we sent them this much. They sent it to Russia. So Russia, you know, really beat the Germans, right? There are two ways the United States was able to get the material into what is called Russia. If you see here what is called Russia, they're fighting the Germans here, and Russians, the Soviet Union, fighting them here. How did they get the weapons to the Russians, the airplanes, the tanks, the bullets? Russia is here. You can't come across Europe because Germany got that covered. So they would ship the supply. They would ship, the ships would come in from Saudi Arabia, and they would come into the port of Iran. There's a railroad running from this part of Iran north, connected, because remember the Soviet Union controlled it. So what they did was, the United States and Russia got together, told Iran, I don't give a damn what you say. We need this railroad to funnel weapons and everything through Iran. That's one of the main routes that the United States was able to get the military supplies they need to the Soviet Union through Iran. The other way was through this northern, the Baltic Sea here. But the problem with this is it freezes over. So that was the main, so that's how they got most of the weapons there. They couldn't bring it through Vladivostok because Japan was at war. So all of the tanks and the bullets and everything, most of that Russia used came from the US, because Russia's factories had to move to the Ural. They were under attack. The United States was the only industrialized country left that could build things without it being blown up, right? Remember, England, France, Germany, Soviet Union, India, even Africa were way ahead of the United States in the industry. The United States at the 1900 was number 10. And then 1945, they're number 1 because everybody else was destroyed. So all of the equipment, the boats, the airplanes, everything that got to Russia, Russia paid the United States in diamonds and gold. So when they sat down in Brentwood in 1944, the British said, I got nothing to pay you with, ain't no more gold. And then their cousin says, you have what they call colonial preference. What was colonial preference? All of the countries that the French conquered, any mineral has to be only French. The French company's the only one that can come in. French companies are the only one to take the uranium, gold, and dye. The British the same way. Britain had Nigeria, they had South Africa, they had Ghana. And all of what they were stealing from, only businessmen from the UK could be part of it. You understand what happened? Colonial preference. The British would keep the tariff high so that none of the other Europeans and Americans could not get in to get the goodies out of Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. Only British companies, colonial preference. The French, the same thing here. So the United States said to Britain, you don't have to pay me in gold, you give me a cut. I want a cut of everything out of your colony. That's how, when you say American businesses in Africa, that's how they got there. They participated with their cousin, raping Africa after World War II. Colonial preference. Okay? The raw material out of Africa built Europe, World War I, and the raw materials, copper and everything, to build Europe came out of Africa. United States took Japan to rebuild. United States rebuilt up Japan, North Korea, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. All of the industrial, everything built up those three countries came out of Africa. That's how you got all these roads and stuff out. Stealing, theft. Now, let's go to the last page. Burkina Faso. The reason I concentrate on Burkina Faso is because they seem to be, of the three countries, we concentrate on three countries: Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. This strip here, these countries, not Mali, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, they're almost the size of the United States. Of the West Indies, and these three countries, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, they're part of what they call West Africa ECOWAS.
West Africa what?
West African Economic Community. Okay? This community, when you look it up, about 12 or 15 countries. Nigeria is one. These countries are fabulous. Let's take Nigeria. Why they wanted to undo the coup. Nigeria, Mali, and Burkina Faso, they have vast gold reserves. Remember, Mansa Musa, so much gold? France has the fourth largest deposit of gold, they say. France doesn't have gold mine. That's all that theft from these countries. The uranium, we dealt with the uranium. Uranium coming out of Nigeria, uranium goes into France. And France uses that uranium. They buy it from other people. They use that uranium to run their nuclear plant, 56 nuclear plants, to generate electricity they sell to other European countries. And they produce, they supply energy for it. So in essence, close to 1/3 of the electrical energy that's generated in Europe comes from Nigeria. So France got gold, uranium, those two things alone. Okay, now let's take Burkina Faso, this right here. This is what Burkina Faso, when you look at your chart here, we all living in Burkina Faso. All of the foreign companies that's taking out the gold for nothing. Remember Bassoon in Niger? was selling the uranium to the French for 80 cents a kilo when it was going for $200 a kilo. So we're going to deal with Burkina Faso. That's this one. Here's Niger. Here's Mali and Burkina Faso here. It's the smallest of the three. This is what, so now, if we're in Burkina Faso, you got French, who's taking uranium out, and who's taking the gold out? Who's raping Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali? French companies. They're digging the gold, they're digging the uranium, they're making the contracts for how much they want to pay, they're shipping it out, they take it out to Guinea, then they take it to France and they refine it. So they pay Niger $1, and then when you refine that gold bar, you got $100 or more. So the companies that are draining Niger, Burkina Faso are French companies. They dig it up, got to put it on French boats. Only France can do business there to get that uranium, get the gold. And what the president of Burkina Faso, the brother, says, got 1,500 troops here. They're not doing anything. Plus, we only have 100 men, 200 men under arms. How you going to defend a country that's the size of Texas with 200 or 300 men, and you got 1,500 French troops sitting on their ass doing nothing? So if we're here, everything in Burkina Faso is done by the French. Nobody else is doing business in there. Exclusive. So Burkina Faso made the coup, got rid, now we're going back and forth, but I'm using Burkina Faso. Made the coup, they got rid of the guys selling out, and then they get rid of the French army. Correct? So now you have a young African men and women. These are young brothers in their 30s. Look who Burkina Faso is doing business with. Only France before. Let's go here. Burkina Faso is sending their men by the thousands to Rwanda to be trained as military, civilian policemen, National Guard, military, by the thousands. So they got an alliance with Rwanda. Remember, we're sitting in, the brother was here, we're sitting here, we got 200 men under arms for 20 million people, and we got a French troop of French people, a military, 1,500 U.S. military bases, and the rebels got 90% of our country. So you got to get rid of them, right? Who do you want to go to be trained? You think England's going to train you? France? So after they kick out the French, they go to Rwanda for training by the thousands. So Rwanda now, Burkina Faso is going to, just think of it as Texas is now going to have a police force by the thousands. National Guard by the thousands. A military that they now are recovering the land. So they have Rwanda. Chad, they have an alliance with. Saudi Arabia, they're working with them for funding to get the development of Burkina Faso when the Chinese and the Russians come to help develop. That Saudi Arabians are going to provide some of the money because Saudi Arabia like gold. They like things. You got everything. All of what is yours was dealt with and taken away by the French. Right. We go up here, Algeria. I put this alliance. It's not a formal alliance. But when they wanted to, who's ECOWAS, by the president of Nigeria, ECOWAS works for the French in the US. As soon as Nigeria, not Burkina Faso, made the coup, the president of Nigeria, what do? They try to strangle you. They cut off the electricity to Nigeria. They stop border trade. They threatened to put a military force against Nigeria. Nigeria has built an oil pipeline from Nigeria down through to Benin. They were blocking. So here's Nigeria. They get rid of a president who's selling uranium for 80 cents instead of $200. They get rid of him. Why they want to overthrow? Because Nigeria is supplying almost a third of all the uranium for Europe. Nigeria is supplying the gold that's keeping the French economy stable. We got to get that back. The French asked Algeria, can they overfly Algeria to strike Nigeria? The Algerian says, we're not going to let you do to Nigeria what you did to Libya and destroy it. Algeria, will intervene militarily on the side of Nigeria against anybody. So the plot that United States and France, that president of Nigeria and the rest of these sellout Africans were ready to jump on and cut off the electricity, cut off trade, and ready to militarily intervene to put back a president who was selling the damn thing for 80 cents. 80 cents. That's why Mali, Nigeria, Mali, and Burkina Faso, they formed a formal military alliance. We're going to fight together. Up here, Mali, alliance, formal military alliance, these three countries, Mali, Nigeria, Burkina Faso. They also have an unwritten alliance with Algeria, because Algeria said, we're not letting anybody overfly to attack any of these countries. In fact, the Algerian military is number 3. The largest militaries in Africa is Egypt, South Africa, Algeria, and Nigeria. So Algerians told Nigeria, you ain't going in. So they quickly formed the military alliance for their protection, and Algeria says, I'll protect you. Burkina Faso, Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Nigeria, they have Russians coming in to help train and to protect the ruling group at this point. So Algeria, Mali is in a formal alliance. Russia is a strategic alliance. So they have working with China for training, China for weapons. North Korea for training in weapons. Russia for training in weapons. So when you look at the chart, you have a country that was forced to deal only with France stealing everything, and now they have formal and informal alliance with at least 15 other countries. And now what they're saying is, when they're fighting these rebels in the Sahel, they have jet fighters. Now you went just a year and a half, just have a ragtag army. Now within a year, Burkina Faso built up their military, where they have jet fighters, small jet fighters. They have attack helicopters. They have the drones, to look down and shoot them from Turkey. So you have Russia supplying military, you have China supplying military, you have Uganda, Rwanda, you have Turkey. Now you have all of these places you can go because the West is not going to give you weapons. And this Russian-Ukrainian war helped a lot to show the world and Africa that Russia is the dominant military force, that you can go to Russia, you can go to China, you can go to everybody else and get your weapons. So now they've retaken most of the country back. The other thing these countries are doing is they're cutting off the foreign companies that is taking away their gold. So what they're doing is they're shutting down the gold mines, and Russia and China are coming in, mainly Russia. They're going to build, they're working to build gold refineries. So instead of the gold going out, it's going to stay there. They're going to refine their own gold. They're going to refine their own uranium. Burkina Faso is working a deal to get a nuclear reactor. So in other words, they are doing what you have to do, the Pan-African, get rid of your enemy, which in this case is the United States and France. Start dealing with the rest of the world because you're an African country. Everybody knows you got everything. So you can deal with anybody now to get anything you want. So these countries are now beginning to get something. The last page is just a quick summary for your health. We'll go into this in a little more detail. I just wanted to do it. Life. You have to be alive. That's what life means. You gotta wake up alive. Dead doesn't work. Health. Mental, sleep, nutrition, exercise, environment. Those are the 5 things you need to do. Mental, reduce your stress as much as you can. Stress, the best way, the best sleep you can get is circadian rhythm. Just means you go with the sun. That's all. Like you do on the farm and you do out in these cities. Circadian rhythm. You wake up with the sun, you go down with the sun. Because the electromagnetic energy of the sun and the universe regulates your hormone to wake you up, to make you the strongest up to a certain point, and then at 12 o'clock, the body's being prepared for you to bring in the food, and by 6, the body's being prepared for it. Okay? There's a reason for that. Nutrition, plant-based, organic diet overall is the best. Exercise, you must exercise. Do whatever you want to do, you got to move the body. By exercising, you're moving the muscles, you're getting through the lymphatics, you're getting all the waste out quicker, you're bringing the nutrients more, and when you do your muscles, the muscles burn most of your energy. Most of the sugar and most of the fat that your body burns to stay alive is due to muscular activity. So physical activity regulates your heat system. Physical activity regulates how efficiently your body burns sugar and fat. And all, these are basic things. The environment, you got to have knowledge about how to avoid things that are bad for you. Time, after you do these things, you educate yourself and say, well, I'm going to start doing it this way. Number 2, lifestyle change. And number 3, time. So you tell somebody, look, if you start eating a good organic plant-based diet, you learn that that's the best. And you convinced that that is the best. That's where your education comes from. Now, number 2 is your lifestyle. What good is knowing it if you don't do it? And most of us, due to habits, that's where we fall down. Doing what we think is best. In the medical system, the doctor does 3 things. They examine you, whether you need it or not. They treat you, and they bill you. They examine you, treat you, and bill you, because if they don't bill you, you're not going to get the examination. You're not going to get anything. And over here, I just draw two pyramids to show the difference. Now, based upon the time we have left, you will determine what comments you want to make, what discussions we want to have, and you have more than enough material to educate you or to bring you a certain level of information on a number of different topics. And each of these topics, you go and you start doing your other research. And now with the question and answer, we want to hear what others have to say to contribute. Anything you say contributes to the overall knowledge. It's like I tell the patients when I do eye exam. There are two people in the room. The doctor don't tell you, there are two people. I'm there and you, we got to work together. There are groups of people here. So I gave you that. Any comments you want to make, any questions, all of it is going to do is just enrich what we have talked about, and it's in the question and answer periods that you get more clarity on any of the subjects you talk about. This is just to try to present the material so that you can hear it, see it, and read it. Now, if you want to make your comments, discussion, we all have valuable information about health and everything else. You got to talk loud for the people because I'm a little hard of hearing.
Dr. Arthur Lewis, I was told that Africans, enslaved people that were taken out of Africa actually were vegan, were vegetarians and did not eat meats coming out of the motherland originally. Do you know anything about that?
Repeat the question.
So if Africans who came out of Africa to America and were enslaved, is it true that we were vegan in terms of our eating habits? No meats. Is that true? I was told that Africans were vegan and meats were not a part of their main diet originally for enslaved people. Do you know anything about that?
No, I can't. No, I don't know. The question is, the Africans brought here, were we vegans before we left? I can't answer it because I haven't done any studies, I haven't done any reading on it, and I can't say, oh yes and no. Or what I would say is, you grow in Africa, 65% of all the arable land in the world is in Africa. When you go to Egypt and you look on the wall, when you want to see the life of the elites, the kings and the queens and the dukes and the higher people, you will see their lifestyle on the walls. Then you go to one of the units and you see the dentist, and then you will see the doctor, and you see the carpenter. They ate pork on certain occasions. You can see during the festival, they ate pork. When you look on the wall, they ate everything. There was birds, there were quails, fish.
So they were not vegan?
I didn't say they weren't vegan. I'm saying based upon what you see on the wall, you go into it, and that's where, if you want to know what the common people did, you go into where the doctor lived, or you go into an area where, you know, in one of the, I won't call it pyramid, but where you can go in to see a carpenter, what kind of house a carpenter, what kind of hardware did they. You see everything. They had all kinds of birds and quails, beef. Remember, Egypt at that point, when we were walking around, we asked Dr. Ben, how come, I'm going to get you a second, how come you have downspouts in these things? He said because there was one time, Egypt, it rained. It wasn't all desert at this point. Remember, what you're saying in Egypt goes back 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000 years, and you know that area has changed. You go and you look at Egypt and you see them hunting hippopotamus, crocodile. Everything was there. So all I'm saying is, if you're an African and you have one of the richest, if not the richest, agricultural variety in the world, they say, we didn't eat rice. There are areas that grew rice. So the best way I would answer it, from what I saw in the temples and I saw in the different, everything was there.
Okay, thank you.
So, I was going to answer a question a little bit also. All those places in Africa, the people didn't live exactly the same.
Right.
Like in West Africa, what they're eating now in West Africa is not really what they used to eat before, because the Brits came and fed them a different diet. Like my friends in Nigeria said, they didn't eat that stuff 400 or 500 years ago. And then you have places like Ethiopia, which is very vegetarian. If you ever eat Ethiopian food, when I was in Ethiopia, there wasn't a lot of meat. Then you go to South Africa, they eat meats. The original people in the Congo, the Twa people, not very meat-eating. They're very vegan, vegetarian in the Congo. So,
It depends on where you are.
yeah, these people ate a variety of different things, but the problem is that meat is not necessarily bad for you, it's what they put in it. You know what I mean? You can go to countries like Pakistan, India, where everything is fresh, the fish is fresh. Even the fish here you can't really eat. So it's what they're putting in the food that's killing people. And these people are different, like Angolans. They eat a lot of meat. So it varies.
Yeah, you have all of the, probably one of the greatest variety of vegetables and fruits, and you had plenty of livestock if you wanted to eat.
Oh yeah. There's a place in Durban, a restaurant in Durban. They also got one in Texas. They serve you all kinds of meat. Alligator, pheasant, dove, beef, chicken, pork, and it's a meat place. And it's all you can eat. And when you're done, you have to ring a bell. And when you ring a bell, they stop bringing you food. And the other tables laugh at you because you stop eating. They got something like
Is it Brooklyn?
That's in Durban, South Africa.
And just to add on what he's saying, just speculation, if you have 60%, how many varieties of all kinds, you probably have the greatest quantity and variety of plants and animals to eat. And like you said, why not eat them?
I bet that's very true, because I know a lot of Africans here in Harlem, they tell you quickly eat meat, and so I can understand why when you tell a story, people where you are. So, I don't know, I need to read more, and that's why I asked the questions, because, the big push for don't eat the meats, eat the things from the earth, because it's so much better for you, so much better for you. And I had heard that in the past, and I simply
You gotta go there too, You gotta go there and deal with the people in a sense of finding out what they do. Because you get a guy in let's say, Chad, and he doesn't eat pork, he doesn't eat fish. And then you get a guy in Mali who said, that guy is stupid, I eat pork and fish all the time.
So it's an individual thing.
It's a cultural thing. There's something we call black pudding in the Caribbean. It's actually something called blood pudding. It's made out of cow blood. And that is a serious delicacy all over Africa. Well, not all over, but in certain countries, especially in West Africa, you eat something called blood pudding.
I know.
You're familiar with that, right?
No, I've heard of that. Some people, the men are.
The Maasai,
The Maasai.
Oh, they do a lot of milk and blood.
They're saying that they're known for drinking cow's
Blood. And milk.
And they're taking.
That's part of the ritual.
They always ask, how are the children? They're real big on how are the children. We ask them about the children. They get a lot of cow's blood. Now that would be a little bit much for me. But, what you're used to, I guess.
Well, I was just saying to answer your question without definitively defining any particular area, that Africa is vast. And to go with Rajin said, it's not enough to go there, because to go there might only confuse you. You would have to study the history of it, if you're talking about before the European presence. But in any event, time, place, and circumstance. What would be a better question was, what is traditional or most traditional among Africans? Things like yams and all of that, you know, coconuts and various other fruits and vegetables. That would be more germane to this discussion as opposed to was it meat or wasn't it meat. If there was any scarcity with respect to time, place, and circumstance, look at the things that they grew everywhere, whether it was certain fruits and vegetables, and you would get a better answer and a better outlook from there. But nothing's more traditional than the yam in Africa.
And even in the South Pacific, their culture has been basically untouched. But they eat mainly the plants that are there. The pork they usually eat only on special ceremonies, like weddings and holidays and things like that. So the pork is a delicacy. And they eat, because you're on the water, they eat the fish. The main meat is the fish. We ate the bat, flying bat. You eat what's there.
Flying bat.
Bat, yeah, look, I've eaten bat. You can't.
It just depends on how you season it.
Yeah. Well, okay, go on.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about how swiftly did this person you said that got fired from the Biden administration after saying that the money remains in U.S. hands, even though the thinking is that it's sent abroad?
And there's this lady called Victoria Nuland. She's been there about 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And she's one of these hard persons. She was one of the main ones who the United States sent to do the coup. You know, there was a coup in Russia and I can't think of Ukraine. There was a coup.
Yeah.
The Yanukovych who was there, Russian, he was doing business mainly with Russia because he come from the Soviet Union, and then the US and the European wanted to do business, and the so-called Russians said, okay, do business with us and do business with them. But the Western Europeans didn't want it that kind of way. So she was one of the Undersecretary of States at the time they had the coup, that they got on record.
Part of the Biden administration.
Obama administration, yeah.
Okay.
She's on record, it's all over, that she was sent there, she was instrumental to set up the coup. You know, the Maidan coup in the center where they had the riot and the killing and the overthrow, etc. So she's most identified with whatever's going on with Ukraine. Who's identified with Ukraine? She is, because her face was there. Who's identified with Ukraine? Biden, because his son and all of them, it's open. Now that Ukraine, they've been lying to the United States, to the world, or to America. Now that Ukraine is almost gone, they don't have ammunition, and the Russians is just taking their time. They're going to have to admit that what they did was wrong. You try to overthrow Russia, the sanctions didn't work, you blew up the pipeline, you reduced the cheap gas, so now Europe is sliding into a recession. You done spent tens of billions, hundreds of billions of US dollar, and now it's obvious that Ukraine is going to lose the war. But the average person who's not following, they've been telling you Ukraine is winning Ukraine. So evidently, they decided to cut her. She's the one, she's the scapegoat. She's the one who messed it all up. To put it all on her.
So her head's going.
That's what they're saying. Wait now, that's what they're saying.
Okay.
came on TV. It's still on the TV now.
Okay.
And they were trying to convince them to tell you the lie. Oh, we need another 60 billion because the Ukrainians need this. Russia already wiped out everything, or everything the United States and Europe sent, they wiped it out. Then the whole question is, one congressperson asked, why are you sending money, 60 more billion, to Ukraine when they already lost the war? They're short on manpower. They got women in the military. The average age of Ukraine now is about 42 in the military, because they've been killed so many of the people. So everybody is trying to use some excuse. We give them a little bit more. And she just came out, it's on TV, Nula just came out and said, you need to get the $60 billion to Ukraine. They keep telling them for Ukraine, and he said, but it's not for Ukraine. It's going to go to the military, it's going to stay here for jobs in the military-industrial complex. She said it right on TV, you know, in her zest to try to use some excuse on why you should send more money. Most of the money that goes to Ukraine, 95% is split between military, it's given the Pentagon. Pentagon gives the military its cut, Pentagon keeps its cut, and gives the Congress their cut in terms of donations, right? But the American people don't know that. They kept telling them to send the money. So for some reason, Congress is not budgeting that last 60 billion. They're trying to get Congress to pass. It's only going to go to the military-industrial complex. But she said it. Everybody's been saying, well, Ukraine needs this, Ukraine needs this. But Newman came out and said to the American people, we gotta pass it because it's not really going to Ukraine. It's going to the military. It's going to jobs here. She wasn't supposed to say it. It's on TV. I don't know. She's frustrated. They're blaming her. Look. All of these, they spent $3 trillion in Afghanistan. Where do you think that money went? Sure. It went to the military-industrial complex. It went to the Pentagon. It went to Congress. We got massive homelessness.
Anybody got a question, Zoom?
So she's on there. If you go on certain websites, you'll see her.
And what was her former position?
She's the Undersecretary of State.
Okay.
You know this guy who's the Secretary of State.
Right.
Whoever he is, they put her as number 2. But she was the point person 15 years ago organizing the coup with the Yanukovych, and she's there saying after the rest of the Europeans, we're going to do it that way.
So she goes back to the Obama.
Political affairs.
But the Biden administration fired.
They retained them.
Right.
Because it's the same, musical chair.
Okay.
So evidently she's been there so long, but the prior,
on that,
they put all, say that again?
She's an American diplomat on the U.S. Foreign Service Committee.
Yeah. She was the face. So now they got rid of her. For whatever the reason they got rid of her, but she said it. And that's what the whole point that I was able to find that article. When the guy tells you, the Princeton report says to you, all the laws, every law that's passed has nothing to do with you. All that tax, this $3 trillion is your tax money.
Now, was she the one, well, I don't know if she's the one who said it, but you know that America, by its own policy, is not allowed to send money to a foreign power if they're doing crimes against humanity. So no money should be sent to Israel or Ukraine.
Yeah, but they still do it, right?
I know she ain't saying that.
I know, but who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them? They take your money, and then they give it to the Pentagon, and then every year they say, look, they have you bill. Your taxes go up. Our taxes, they're living off of us. The corporations, why isn't it most of these corporations get their money from the government? one military contract another. Yes.
Do you see a wising up with Europe deciding to abandon the United States and get their economy going, working with Russia and China?
Okay.
Like, especially Germany?
Okay. Let me put it to you this way. I can't answer the question directly, but I'll answer it as short as we can. Russia and Africa sends 8 things to Europe. Europe cannot survive. Europe can't feed itself. Africa and Russia. Russia sells to Europe these things. The Europeans steal these things from us. Gas, oil, coal, wood, and uranium. Those 5 things that produce the energy for any society to run. You think you can run this society without gas for your car and buses? You think you can run this? You need the energy for the heat to do steel. Those 5 things, Europe survives off of those energy sources. They have to either pay it from Russia or steal it from us. What happens when now the Africans are beginning to not sell their product cheap, sell them wood? When I was in Senegal, damn trees. The trees are half of this thing. Now that's going to go to France. Then France is going to then make furniture and everything. So they might have brought that massive log for $1,000. And they're going to make products out to sell back to the African for $50,000. It's like the Ugandan president said, some Indians and some Africans approached the government. They want to buy iron ore. How much? $7 a ton. And he asked them, now that you take it to India for $7 a ton, and you make steel, how much are you going to sell it back to us? $700 a ton. So the Africans are seeing that the world is changing. They're all beginning to not allow the raw product to go, and they're doing value added. So Europe is going into a recession depression. Germany was number 4 before this war. They're now number 6. Germany's industry are leaving because you can't make cars, you can't make steel, you can't make glass. You need energy. They were getting it dirt cheap from Russia. They could sell it at a certain price, but now that the United States blow up the pipeline, then now you can sell this product for this amount, $1, because you're getting it from Russia for 25 cents. Now you're no longer getting the gas for 25 cents that you can sell. It's much more expensive, so their products are more expensive. So in other words, what's happening now to Europe, they lost 2 of the main sources of energy. The uranium from Nigeria and the oil from Russia. Those are the things that make you an industrial society. What do you think this place would look like? 20% of all of this electricity generated by nuclear energy. All of the uranium that has gone into burning, there are 54 nuclear reactors in the United States. All of the uranium comes from Russia. What if Russia cut them off? If Russia cuts them off, you won't have electricity because Russia is the main source to refine uranium. Okay. The point that I'm making is that the Africans are beginning to not sell the big tree. They're keeping the trees. They're making arrangements with Russia, China, and everybody else to build the factory so you can take your wood and you can make tables and chairs for value added. They're doing it to uranium. They're doing it to cobalt. The Africans beginning to shut. So look at Russia. Remember those 5 things: gas, oil, coal, wood, and uranium. let's say, eat. Most of the food, fertilizer is coming from Africa and Russia. Russia and Africa feeds Europe. China is fed from Russia and Africa. African agricultural products is feeding Europe and feeding China. If Africa was a cutoff, they got 65% of the arable land. Most of the food grown in the world is in Africa. If Africa cut the Chinese off and cut the Russians off from everything, they've starved to death. So now the African countries are beginning to not let the raw materials. They're holding the, lithium. They said, we're going to make the batteries. They're holding the cobalt. We're going to make this. We're going to make this. So now, Burkina Faso is going to get a nuclear plant. Russia's going to build it. Now they're going to be able to produce electricity. Now they can industrialize. Now you can have steel mills, glass mills, everything industrialized. Plus you have bombs. You tell them fucking Europeans, we bomb your ass out. Excuse the expression. That nuclear will get the Look, that's the way it is. Okay? So that's what the Africans are in the process of doing. Holding back and getting Russia, China, and whoever else to bring in the industrial. Africa in about 10 to 15 years is going to be the center of massive manufacturing. It was United States and it was Europe had the major industrial base because of the theft. World War I and II, United States was the big guy, the most. United States deindustrialized. Europeans deindustrialized. Where did they send their industry to China? Why did China become industrial in less than 25 years? These stupid Europeans figured they were always going to say, okay, so China is the main industrial area. The main industrial area right now is China, South Korea, and Japan. And some of the Asians. Where did they get those manufacturing technology? From Europeans. Where did Europeans get it from? Yeah, but where do Europeans get it from? The Industrial Revolution in Europe and America, foundation came from Africa when they took our machines and stuff like that. Okay, so the technology went from Africa to the Europeans, they stole it. The Europeans had most of the manufacturing technology from 1900 to 1950. United States is the major industrial nation because all the other industrial nations destroyed themselves. So they're the big guys. So United States now have the major industrial, they're making 56%, they sell it off to China. The Europeans say, I'm going to sell it off to China. So now China has a major industrial base in technology, but without Russian gas, without Iran's gas and oil, China can't make anything. China doesn't produce enough energy. So they're building nuclear plants, Russia is supplying it. They want to eat, they come to Africa. That east coast of Africa, that is the trade that the Africans are going to do. The trade in our lifetime, the trade from Africa was Africa to Europe and the U.S. Africa was to Europe and U.S. Now it is shifted. The Africans will primarily trade with the Asians. Africa is going to be the industrial base of the world in about 15 years. Easy. You got it already. They can build you an industrial plant in 2 years. Nigeria, those countries are the fastest growing country. It is, look.
Cut it up, Dad.
5 countries. What's the name of this? South America, Brazil.
Dad, get in front of the camera. Get in front of the camera.
Okay. Right now, the ship
Questions is over.
the Europeans were running.
Cut it up.
They were cut it, okay.
Thank you!
The United States has no industry, Europe has no industry, the industrial swing to Asia is swinging back. All of the stuff is here.
Lady P, you got a question?
You gotta cut this.
I think Doc had a question.
All right, that's it.